Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Play On podcast. I'm here again with Luke. Luke, how's it going?
Oh, good. How are you, Seamus?
Very good, yeah. We had a wonderful weekend of football. This is the football edition of the Play On podcast. The first game that jumps out straight away is Dublin against Kerry. A very entertaining game, very interesting game as well. Finished Dublin 4 goals and 9 points, Kerry 1 goal and 18 points. David Clifford scoring a late penalty to snatch a draw for Kerry. What did you make of this game?
Yeah, I loved it. I think everybody would be really happy if they could just watch Dublin Kerry every weekend. Really, these games they never fail to disappoint. Even in the league games when we're only what 2 or 3 weeks back and stuff, and I thought it was fantastic.
Yeah, the second year in a row, of course, that these sides have drawn their league match. Once again, Dublin got caught right at the end. But in this game, I think it was different. I'd actually say that if you look at the score line, I think Kerry were the better team. But they made mistakes consistently, which really hurt them. I think the two goals, particularly when they went down the same wing, the first goal in particular, I thought was very poor from Kerry. I think Tadhg Morley just lost Conor O'Callaghan. It was good movement, good inside hand pass by Kieran Kilkenny, and a fantastic finish by O'Callaghan. But the way that O'Callaghan just lost Tadhg Morley was too easy. You can't lose a footballer like that easy. And Costello's goal as well, down that same wing. He was set up by Paddy Small, good finish. But you wonder, would Dublin just attack that wing by chance, or did they know that Kerry might be a little bit weak on that side and attack that wing specifically?
Yeah, I think Dublin were really effective in kind of creating mismatches in the Kerry defence. You look in particular at the Conor O'Callaghan goal. Paul Murphy is the man dragged in to mark him one-on-one in there, and there's only going to be one winner and a high ball coming in there. And I thought Dublin did that really effectively, especially with getting Kilkenny and Con, like their two main mismatch men, onto players that they feel like that they had an advantage on. And that's where the goals came from. I thought Kerry they were maybe a little bit naive with their approach to this, allowing it one-on-one with these two fellas inside. But yeah, I think it's a fair assessment that Kerry were probably the better team on the balance, on the balance of the entire game. But just kind of the big moments kind of went Dublin's way.
Yeah, I would say that. I'd say that there were key moments where Dublin got the rub of the green, particularly for the advantage rule stopping Dara Moynihan's goal. This was in the first half. Robbie McDade does like a very soft free, in my opinion, on Moynihan. Moynihan isn't going to be phased by that, puts the head down, goes through the tackle and sticks it in the back of the net, and the ref brings it back for the free.
Yeah,
I think that
I
should have
think
been a goal.
yeah, I think it's a real grey area in GA. Is that it's kind of an unwritten rule is that when a player is fouled, he's given a few extra steps. And I nearly thought that maybe Moynihan he definitely took about 10 steps, but usually those goals are allowed to continue because he's being fouled. And then when he's being fouled, that those steps aren't counted. So I think it's really subjective for referees. Some referees are going to bring it back for the free in, and some are just going to let it go as the advantage kind of. So it was very harsh to rule it out, probably because you look at all the other examples where those goals have stood for the exact same reasoning.
Yeah, and I would say that as well as this, Kerry did get momentum, and then it was always stopped by a mistake. For example, they started the first half really well. They went 4 points to 1 up, and then Morley lost O'Callaghan for the goal. Again, they start the second half really well, and they seem to be on top for most of the second half. Dublin stay with them, and then Kerry give away a silly penalty. And in my opinion, it was a penalty. Diarmuid O'Connor had his arm around O'Callaghan's neck. And, you thought Dublin were going to get the win from there, but then again, it was a penalty for Kerry. Philly McMahon tackles around the neck of Stephen O'Brien and leaves it as a draw. But the thing that I find the most interesting about this game is I think they both have a reason to be worried about the other team. I think Kerry's worry is that Dublin did not have their best team out. They still have James McCarthy to come back. They still have Dean Rock to come back. They still have Stephen Cluxon to come back. Kerry can you really think of anybody to come back for Kerry that's of that calibre? There's no key player that Kerry can't really deal without that is yet to come back. Maybe Stephen O'Brien.
Yeah, I think Jack Barry maybe pulling out in the warm up was a bit of a loss too. But I get what you mean, that there isn't that many more to come back into that Kerry team. Whereas you look at the Dubs, kind of they've the likes of Howard still to come back into that team. Bugler still has to come in and everything. Like there's a fair few players that still would be expected to be starting come summer that weren't playing for Dublin there.
Yeah, and as well as that, on Dublin's side, Dublin didn't play too well apart from patches of brilliance where they would stick 2 goals in. And without Kerry's mistakes, they wouldn't have got, in my opinion, 3 goals. If Murphy hadn't have been left in on Conor O'Callaghan, they wouldn't have got the 3rd goal. The first goal was poor from Tadhg Morley, and then the penalty. That's all Kerry's mistakes. And you wonder, as time goes on, as this team gets more and more mature, will they make them mistakes? And then if they don't make them mistakes, is that the game where they get over the line against Dublin?
Yeah, look, I think it showed them that they are always able to compete in these games. Like they haven't won an awful lot of them, but they're 100% able to compete. And that that no matter whenever Kerry are going to play Dublin, it's always going to be a game. There's never going to be a comfortable winner in this game. And yet, look, they have the forwards to stay with any team. Like you look at how the way Clifford and Conn kind of battled at the weekend and stuff. I just thought it was an absolute joy to watch. And just you have to be looking forward to any future fixtures between these teams. And it's a pity they can't play more. Like,
yeah, of course. And obviously, the big news was that it looks like there might be fans back in the stadiums for the championship, with up to 25,000 people allowed at the All-Ireland final. And imagine the atmosphere and how hard it would be to get tickets if Dublin and Kerry were playing each other in the All-Ireland final with crowds back in the stadium.
Yeah, it'd be fantastic. It'd be like everybody. It's the type of thing that everybody really needs to see at this stage. It's 2 teams kind of at the absolute peak playing each other.
Yeah. Moving on from that game, Donegal against Monaghan. What a cracker of a game this was. Final score: Donegal 1 goal and 20 points. Monaghan 4 goals and 11 points. And firstly, we have to say Conor McCarthy, unbelievable in the first half. You always knew that this guy has serious potential. He seems to be a bit hot and cold with his form, but in that first half, that was as good a first half in Gaelic football as I've ever seen any player put in. A hat-trick against a team known for having good defenders. All 3 goals, brilliant. Showed brilliant composure. Got another goal after a good run from Carl O'Connell. Took it almost from his own half. And then his hat-trick was brilliant. His brilliant footwork. Took on 3 guys for the 3rd goal. He's a brilliant Gaelic footballer. And if Monaghan can keep him motivated and if he can keep himself in good form, they have a class player there.
Yeah, absolutely. Like he's always kind of shown so much promise for Monaghan. I don't know, there's been questions kind of maybe about consistency, probably why he hasn't like absolutely nailed down a starting spot like as a guaranteed starter. But yeah, I thought he was excellent in the first half. But you see kind of in his interview afterwards the game, he was very disappointed that Monaghan can score 4 goals in the game and still not win it. And yeah, I know he got a bit of attention from Joe Brolly as well afterwards. He was commenting on this, his attitude, how happy he was in the interview afterwards. But yeah, I thought he was fantastic, and yeah, by far I thought the player that stood out most.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It was a game filled with brilliant goals. Like Donegal got another cracker of a goal. Michael Langan nearly blew the roof off the net. Fantastic finish from him. Conor McManus got a very good goal in the second half as well. Stephen O'Hanlon, you mentioned him last week, his pace running from deep. O'Hanlon took it the whole way down the field. With Killian Lavelle, who was at midfield, he looked really good as well. This is another find from Monaghan. They're bringing a lot of young lads through. Lavelle was there. Michal Bannigan was there. Aaron Mulligan was there again. But anyway, that move, Stephen O'Hanlon and Killian Lavelle took it, and it ended up with Conor McManus scoring a brilliant goal. It ends in a draw. I think, to be honest, both teams are a bit unsatisfied with that. Donegal would have loved to have made it back-to-back wins and ensure that they are going to play in the league semi-final. But
Yeah.
considering they conceded 4 goals, they're probably happy to not lose.
Yeah. I think obviously 4-11 is a very disappointing scoreline to concede against yourself, kind of. And I think they'll be very disappointed, kind of, that the defense looks fairly porous at times, kind of. So there's still a lot to work on there. But I thought McBrearty was starting to look pretty sharp there towards the end of the game, and I think that's positive signs that once they get that forward line going again, they can be a match for anyone as the year goes on.
Yeah, definitely. McBrearty looking like he's on form is a brilliant sign for Donegal, but there's negative signs there for Donegal as well. Obviously, Michael Murphy's hamstring injury is a huge blow to them. But another worrying sign is they were so loose at the back. They conceded 9 goal chances to Monaghan. And if you're talking about over the years, through Jim McGuinness now to Declan Bonner, you would not associate Donegal with being loose at the back. And they have to sort that out for Championship, because we'll get on to Tyrone later, but Tyrone's attack looks brilliant. And if Tyrone get them in the Championship and Dooher and Logan have figured out what team they like, and Donegal are still that loose at the back, I think Tyrone could take them out.
Yep, yeah, I think that's definitely fair. I think they didn't look. If you look at the first game of the league as well, they conceded a fair few goal chances to Tyrone as well, I thought. But this is kind of a new sensation for Donegal. But like, you last couple of years, even under Bonner, this hasn't been an issue, and it hasn't looked likely. So it's a bit puzzling as to why they shipped so many, kind of, especially at the weekend, so many chances. So yeah, hopefully from their perspective, that by the end of the league they identified what the issue is, and they cut that out.
Yeah, I agree with that. But yeah, very interesting to see how they go about fixing them problems. And another thing is, how fit will Michael Murphy be come Championship? Will he be back? And if he's back, will he be back to his best? Moving on to the next game, a rivalry for the ages back in the 2000s, Armagh against Tyrone. Another very entertaining game of football. Tyrone 2 goals and 15 points, Armagh 2 goals and 10 points. Tyrone get their first win under Fergal Logan and Brian Dooher. What did you make of this game?
Yeah, I thought it was an excellent first half. I like it was, yeah, the start of it was very exciting, goals straight away for both teams, and then they went in level at the break and stuff, and then I thought Tyrone's class kind of showed in the end, and they pulled away. So yeah, I thought from their perspective, like, another one of their forwards kind of stepped up this week. I thought Darren McCurry was by far the best forward for Tyrone this week. Like, last week it was Paul Donaghy, and now even McCurry stepping up. And this is kind of fellas beyond the kind of tradition, like the mainstays of that forward line, Peter Hart and Matty Donnelly. So I think it's very positive from Tyrone's perspective.
Yeah, I would agree with all that you've just said there. Darren McCurry scored the point of the game for me, the chip up, and he was at such a tight angle and he swung it over, not a bother to him. And you're right about Tyrone have depth. Tyrone have some serious depth. Mark Bradley came on, he scored a cracking goal. That shows, again, there's another guy there with serious potential trying to force his way into the team. You've got Lee Brennan, obviously. You've got Cathal McShane to come back, the 2019 All-Star for forward. And you're right about the start. It was an absolutely ferocious start. Peter Hart scored an unbelievable goal. And he added another good point after. And then Jarlath O'Byrnes scores a goal then straight after. I think, again, Armagh, they had that game there. I think they had a chance to win. I think the key moment in the game was Stefan Campbell missing that penalty. I think that gave Tyrone a kick to get them back into the game.
Yeah, I think it was huge. And like, I know it was a great save from Niall Morgan, but it wasn't the best penalty you're ever going to see from Campbell. So yeah, I thought like, after a first half when Armagh, like, they looked kind of in trouble a little bit at the start. Tyrone looked like they might pull away, and then did really well to get in level at the break. I think they'll be very disappointed with how it went in the second half, but they were coming up against a team that looked very, very sharp.
Yeah. As for Armagh positives, the O'Neill brothers continue to impress me, to be honest. Unbelievable ball in by Rian O'Neill to set up Conor Turbitt's goal. Oisin O'Neill, well documented, he's a brilliant footballer. In in my mind, McGeaney, what he's doing well is he's putting in the conditions to allow players like Rian O'Neill and Oisin O'Neill to flourish, and we're seeing them at their absolute best.
Yep. I thought. Yeah, I think Armagh have had a good old start to the league now. You look at the first week, and then you look at kind of how they've competed against Tyrone. I think they're showing that they belong here so far. I think McGeaney will be really happy with their start.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree that to not get hammered by Tyrone kind of shows that maybe this is the level that they should be at. And for Armagh to progress, they have to be playing football at this level. I just think it'd be very interesting to see them against Donegal, considering the damage that they took off Donegal last year in the championship. They got an absolute hammering. If they can put that out of their minds and just focus on the league game and get a result against Donegal, I think that will do them the world of good.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, so now that we're finished with that game, the last game in Division 1 is Galway against Roscommon. Would you believe Galway's first win since before the pandemic? Galway bouncing back. They needed this win, and they got it. Their big men stood up. Paul Conroy and Shane Walsh were superb. And they got the job done.
Yeah, I always felt that. I thought Roscommon was going to be the best bounce back game for them. Like, I know they'd like a humiliating nearly defeat to Kerry the week prior, but like, yeah, I think they've always kind of had Roscommon's number a little bit, and yeah, it was a perfect kind of response for them, and I think they'll be hoping that they can completely eliminate that Kerry game from their memory. So yeah, I thought they did well, and then the most interesting part I thought was they got young Culhan through, and that he's a fellow that looked absolutely superb in the under-20s last year, and then he comes in and gets a goal and a point, and I thought he had a huge impact on the game.
Speaking of that goal, as great as it is to see a very young talent like Tom O'Callaghan coming through, questionable about the square ball.
Yeah, I think the forward always kind of gets the. Yeah, well, you don't see many square balls now at this stage of it, and I think the forward is getting the benefit of the doubt in most cases. Referees just really don't like giving square balls for goals now at this stage.
Yeah,
but yeah, it was certainly marginal.
Yeah, it was definitely marginal, and Galway got that call, and that's what kind of, that could have been a turning point. We don't know, if that really had that much of an impact on Roscommon's state of mind, if that had an impact on their players. But it definitely was a key moment. And of course, Paul Kelly got a goal nearly straight away. And Roscommon just didn't seem to ever threaten. It was always Galway on the attack, Galway on the attack, Galway on the attack. Like Colm Lavin made 2 good saves from Shane Walsh and from Liam Silk to stop more goals going in for Galway. I think Galway could have won by more. Although Kieran Murtagh did get a goal. Bernard Power made a mistake for that goal. He shouldn't have come out, but he did. Murtagh just flicked it over him. And yeah, to be honest, I do see this as influential for the provincial championship. I can't see Roscommon winning Connacht now, particularly with how good Mayo look. How do you see their chances?
Yeah, I don't think they've much of a chance now, to be honest. I thought the biggest issue for them was that was a pretty full strength team that they had out against Galway at the weekend, and they only had 3 scorers. So they're really, I think they're really short. They had they were very, very dependent on Kieran Murtagh and then the Smith, and all the scores were coming through the 2 of them essentially. And I think they could be easily shut down kind of in Connacht by the 2 kind of main teams, particularly Mayo. Yeah, I don't even think Galway are contenders in the All Ireland, and Galway looked fairly comfortable against them. So yeah, I wouldn't be too confident of Roscommon giving Connacht a fair crack.
Yeah, I would agree with what you said there. I don't see Galway as All Ireland contenders this year, but I do think that they have the potential to eventually challenge for the All Ireland in the next 2 or 3 years. They've got some serious young talent, as you mentioned, Tom O'Callaghan, and Jack Glynn, obviously in the defence, other players like that coming through. Kieran Malloy was starting at the weekend, which is definitely a positive. He's been knocking on the door for a long time. But yeah, they got the job done. The full-time score in that game was Galway 2 goals and 16 points, Roscommon 1 goal and 13 points. Okay, so that is our review of the Division 1 results. Now we'll move on to the preview of the next fixtures in Division 1. Division 1 North, Tyrone against Monaghan.
Yeah, I think Tyrone are going to win. I think they're starting to click a little bit. I think Monaghan will be very disappointed after kind of letting it slip against Donegal a bit. So I think Tyrone were going to win.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think Tyrone look very good, and now that they've got that first win under their belt, I think they're going to get the job done against Monaghan. But Monaghan did look good against Donegal, but I would just give the advantage to Tyrone on this one. The other game in Division 1 North, Armagh against Donegal, as we've mentioned, massive game for Armagh mentally, this one, considering what happened in last year's championship. But I think Donegal are going to beat them. I think Donegal will look to make a little bit of a statement. Even without Michael Murphy, I think Donegal are going to win this game. Yeah,
I think this will be an interesting one because Armagh they've looked a goal scoring threat throughout the whole league so far. And then Donegal need to sort it. So I think Armagh have a chance if they can rattle in a few goals. But I think I'd probably agree with you that Donegal are going to edge it by maybe close to 5 points.
Yeah, I would say that it will be a lesser margin of victory for Donegal now that Michael Murphy isn't there, but I still think they're just that little bit ahead of Armagh. In Division 1 South, Roscommon will play against Kerry and Galway will play against Dublin. And for me, I can't see anything other than both Kerry and Dublin winning their games here.
Yeah, I particularly fear for the score in the Roscommon Kerry game. I think, yes, well, we all saw what Kerry did to Galway. So I think, I think Kerry could give Roscommon a bit of a clipping.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
In the Dublin Galway game as well, I think, I think Dublin will have too much for Galway. I know it's in Galway as well, which is always kind of hard enough place for Dublin to go. They've never traditionally won comfortably in Galway, so I think that will kind of stay being the case, and they will maybe less than 5 points to get over the line in the end.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think it will be very similar to the league game that was played between the two last year, where Dublin kind of just cruised to victory. Galway didn't really even look like they wanted to show too much before their game against Sligo or Mayo, because Sligo obviously pulled out due to the virus. So we're predicting that Tyrone, Donegal, Kerry and Dublin will all come out as victors on the weekend here.
Yep, I think it's fairly hard to see kind of anything else other than that. And maybe if I had to kind of suggest one kind of upset, maybe Armagh might beat Donegal. Yeah,
I agree with that. That's the most likely one that I think we could be wrong in. So that is our preview and review of the action in the Division 1 Football League. We will come back with the rest of the results in Division 2, 3 and 4. Pan. Welcome back, everyone, to part 2 of the Play On Podcast Football Edition. In this part, we're going to be looking at the results in Division 2, 3 and 4, and then having a quick preview of next weekend's fixtures. So, Division 2, we're going to start with Clare beating Kildare by 1 goal and 13 points to 13 points. Owen Cleary, again, massive in this game, 7 points. He's a superb footballer. Clare back-to-back wins and looking very good.
Yep, I think they've been the huge kind of, they've been probably the biggest surprise package, I'd say, in the league so far. I don't think many people were tipping them to be in contending kind of for a Division 1 kind of playoff spot. But I think they've a home game against Cork next weekend, and that's for 3 wins in that group. So I think I think they have a fantastic chance to, if they can keep pushing on, to get up to Division 1, which I think would be absolutely huge for Clare football, particularly kind of with what's going on at the moment.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I do think that the game against Cork for them is massive, because if they get the win in that game, then they go to the top of the group and they probably get Meath in the semi-final. And if they get Meath, then I'd almost back Clare to win that game.
Yeah, I think they have a fantastic chance in that against Meath. I think they look like, when you look at the teams they've already beaten so far, they've beaten Laois, they've beaten Kildare, 2 teams in Leinster that you would nearly say would be probably at a similar level to Meath already. So I think they'd be very confident going into that game.
Yeah, because if they can beat Kildare gave me the good game at Leinster. It was Meath's goals that day from Jordan Morris that kind of got them over the line. Then yeah, I would definitely back Clare to do it. They still have class players like David Tubridy and Jamie Malone and all them guys. They've absorbed Gary Brennan's retirement really, really well. Yeah, exciting times for Clare. Colin Collins is doing a superb job as their manager. In the other games in this division, Mayo and Meath both, in my opinion, cemented themselves as the top two in the division, but they cemented themselves as the top two in that group. Mayo beating Westmeath by 21 points to 212. Meath beaten Down by 215 to 14 points. Mayo looked good again. Westmeath gave them a closer game than I thought they would. Mayo were caught napping for Luke Laughlin's goal after Ronan O'Toole's shot hit the post, and then John Heslin got a goal from a penalty after Damon O'Connor was black carded. But in my opinion, Mayo's know-how kind of got them through the game. Killian O'Connor kicked a really good point at the end, which kind of saw Mayo home. And back-to-back wins for James Horn.
Yeah, I thought they looked kind of in trouble for kind of large portions of the game. Half time they were down, and yeah, so I think it was really important for them that they got a good game. Like you saw what happened the first week when they played Down, and you thought that maybe they're going to stroll through this division and that they're not going to be tested going into Connacht and stuff. But this was a proper game that they had, and they came through on the right side. So yeah, they play Meath next weekend in that final kind of game in the group to determine who's top. And I'd say, judging off form, they'd be hard to kind of look past them, I'd say.
Yeah, I would pick Mayo to win that game because, speaking of Meath, even they beat Down, but it was a very negative, very poor performance from Down, in my opinion. Lots of bodies back. Way too defensive, particularly at a time when the approach from a lot of teams seems to be to attack more than to defend. Down are a bit of a throwback to 2000s and 2011 when teams like Donegal and Jim McGuinness were putting 14 men behind the ball. But still, even though Down had so many bodies back, Meath were running through them sometimes almost at will. Donald Keoghan ran through to hit the bar, and then Meath scored counter-attack goals from Killian O'Sullivan. And Down, even though they had all those bodies back, they still conceded 215, which is a high score to let in, particularly when you're putting in a blanket defence.
Yeah, I think they've been a really disappointing kind of aspect of Division 2. I think in our kind of build up to it, we kind of thought that Down maybe could give, it was between them and Meath for that kind of second spot in this division and yeah, we saw what happened in the first week against Mayo. They got a considerable beating, and yeah, a Meath team kind of were comfortable enough against them in the end by 7 points. So yeah, they're right down the bottom of this division, no wins so far, and they're gonna have to have a much better performance next week, like away in Westmeath, in order to stay up.
Yeah, and the form that they're in now, I think Westmeath might well turn them over. Jack Cooney's got a good setup there at Westmeath, but
they've given 2 good games so far.
Yeah, I don't understand why Down put all these bodies back. We saw in the first half against Cavan when Down really pressure and go forward in numbers. People like Caelan Mooney and Jerome Johnston, when they go forward like that, they can do damage. I don't see why they're so afraid, particularly against a team like Meath, who, in my mind, wouldn't be too far ahead of them in terms of the personnel that they have. They seem to show me too much respect. I'm not sure if they're trying to put in a system in place now so that they're ready to play a Donegal or a Tyrone in Ulster when the championship comes around. But if this is the system that they're going to play, I wouldn't really want to be watching too many Down games.
Yeah, I think that's definitely fair. And I think, but on the basis of the league so far, I don't think too many of the teams up north will be too worried about facing them.
Yeah, and the other game in Division 2, it's starting to look like big trouble now for Laois. Beaten by Cork 2-12, Laois 10 points. Sean White scored a goal within 2 minutes. Yeah, pretty simple enough victory for Cork. Some very noteworthy scores. Ian Maguire fantastic catch from a kick out, and he ran the whole way himself and put it over the bar. And then the second goal for Cork, Rory Dean just ran straight down. Direct running seems to be what he's brilliant at. Very good dummy and a good finish. And Laois, the signs are worrying there, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think they were kind of unfortunate with the draw that they got put into the stronger of the two Division 2 groups. I thought maybe if they were in with kind of Westmeath or Down or Meath and stuff, they might have given it a better crack and they have more games, but they're coming up against three teams that just seem to be that little bit ahead of them. So yeah, it's more experience for Laois, but yeah, it looks like they're going down.
To be honest, though, playing like that, I wouldn't back the chances against Westmeath right now. Mayo or Meath. Down. I think if Down played Laois, I think that would be the interesting game. I think Laois are playing against Kildare next week. Laois have to win that game. Laois have to win that game, because if they win that game, they might get to play against Down in the relegation playoff. And I think that's a game that they could win and they stay in Division 2 again. So simply put, for Laois this weekend, it's win or bust, in my opinion.
Yep, absolutely.
Moving on from Division 2 now, down to Division 3. The standout result, Derry 5 goals and 21 points. Fermanagh 9 points. Unbelievable performance from Derry, to be honest. Shane McGuigan scores 2 goals and 5 points from play. Fantastic performance from him, but we all know he's a class footballer. In my opinion, what Rory Gallagher is doing very well for Derry is he's building their team around their best players. He's getting Conor Glass in midfield, Chrissy McCaig at the back, Shane McGuigan as their lead scoreman up front. And they blew Fermanagh away.
Yeah, I think it's an unbelievable result, really. And I think Derry have been the real positive story from Division 3 so far. I'm reading here, plus 35 score difference after 2 games is unbelievable going, really. And like based off this form, it looks highly unlikely that they're not going to be playing Division 2 football next year.
Yeah. 3 goals and 2 points in the third quarter was the big separator between the two teams. Just came out of the blocks after the start of the second half. And Rory Gallagher has got them moving really nicely. And in my opinion, I can't see Derry not going up now after them 2 games. They look really good, especially compared to how the other group looks. Tipperary don't seem to be moving too well, even though they did beat Wicklow. I'd fancy Derry's chances against anyone that comes out of that group.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, like you've already talked about Conor Glass, I think that image of him at the weekend was widely shared of him fetching the ball in midfield, but like what an addition to have back for them. And yeah, I think it's going to be fantastic for confidence against a rival in their province that have done well and traditionally in the last couple of years. And for Rory Gallagher's own old team, like that, to beat them so considerably, it's going to do them world good going into championship.
Yeah, I would agree with that. In the other game in that group, Cavan, the Ulster champions, beaten Longford by 1 goal and 19 points to 1 goal and 13 points.
Yep, another that important win for Cavan, really, kind of. So, and they're going into the last game with a lot kind of on the line. They're playing Derry in that one. They're going to be at home. That's going to be in Kingspan Breffni. And yeah, that's going to be a really interesting one because they seem to be the 2 standout teams there. There are 2 teams in Ulster that are kind of at a similar level. So I think that's definitely the game to watch out for next week. And it's very, very hard to call that one.
Yeah, and there's an interesting narrative starting here that Derry now have 2 wins and they're going away to play against Cavan, who have 1 win. Fermanagh have 1 win, and Fermanagh are playing Longford now next week. If Fermanagh beat Longford and Cavan beat Derry, then it's going to come down to score difference. I already think that Derry are going to go up. I don't think anybody's going to match their score difference. But in my opinion, I think Cavan are going to beat Derry because this is exactly what Cavan seem to do, just sneak up on teams. They snuck up on the Ulster Championship last season, and I think they'll snatch promotion up.
Yeah, the results of the weekend make the first weekend kind of even more puzzling. The fact that Cavan can lose to Fermanagh that have got such a heavy beating from Derry, and like it raises questions of what's happening in Fermanagh at the moment, and it's very, very hard to know where these teams are at and what happens next week. Now, when Derry do play Cavan, I find that to be the hardest game to predict of the entire league next weekend.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. In the other group in Division 3, Tipperary, the Munster champions, got their first win. They beat Wicklow by 2 goals and 12 points to 1 goal and 12 points. Philly Ryan, who is a former Dublin footballer, scored a goal for Tipperary as they won that game. Offaly made it back-to-back wins against Limerick. John Mahon will be delighted with that. I think Offaly now are going to probably top that group, and I think Tipperary will probably sneak in there with them.
Yeah, I felt confident before the league that Offaly under Mahon they've started to look far better than we're in a far better place than where they were. And yeah, 2 great results so far. I know they're playing kind of certainly on the weaker side of the draw, but yeah, next week playing against Tipperary, kind of local derby. It's an exciting one to kind of to look ahead to as well. But I do think that they are guaranteed a semi-final place now.
Yeah, and it'll be very interesting to see them against a Cavan or against a Derry or someone like that to see what level they're at under Mahon, because they play against Wicklow, who had just come out of Division 4. They play against Limerick, who've just come out of Division 4. Now they'll get a chance to play against provincial champions. And if they look as good against Tipperary and then potentially against the Cavan, then we'll know that they've come a long way under Mahon, even though there's already some very, very positive signs.
Yep, completely. It's definitely another game to watch next weekend is that Offaly Tip game. That is going to be a very strong insight into where exactly both teams are right now.
Yeah, moving on from that division to Division 4. 3 games here to analyse. Antrim against Sligo is the standout one for me. Antrim 3 goals and 13 points, Sligo 3 goals and 12 points. Another win for Enda McGinley in charge of Antrim. Antrim once again leaving it late. Another last minute winner, this time from Paddy Cunningham to break Tony McEntee and Sligo's hearts.
Yep, fantastic result for Antrim in the end. Kind of two games, 2 1-point wins. So yeah, I think that they'll be absolutely delighted with how it's gone. And again, yeah, they're in perfect position now to get themselves into a playoff and get themselves going up to Division 3, where they feel they probably deserve to be after last season.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. In other results, Louth beat Leitrim by 19 points to 10, giving Mickey Hart his first win as Louth manager. And Waterford had a 1-point win over Wexford, which is a bit of a surprise for me. I don't think either of them will top that group, though. Carlow play Wexford next week. I think Carlow are going to win that game. And it'll be interesting to see who goes up with Carlow, in my opinion. Right now, I would pick Antrim to go up.
Yeah, I'd go with that completely. I think they've had 2 huge results so far, and I think they have to be the favourites to go up. Just on a note, I think it's been kind of interesting. Waterford kind of seem to have, in the last couple of years, they seem to have had kind of the one up on Wexford. They beat them in Championship not too long ago as well. So I think it's kind of a change in kind of traditional between 2 traditional neighbours, that kind of the norm has kind of certainly been changed there recently. So I wouldn't have been too surprised to have seen Waterford coming out on top there.
Yeah, it shows how much Wexford football has declined, in my opinion, though.
Yeah, I think that's the key point, is that how far they've dropped since. I know there was probably a lot of optimism when Paul Galvin came in, and then that didn't last at all. So I think they're in a very worrying place.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. You think back to 2011, 2012, in my opinion, they should have won those Leinster finals against Dublin.
Yep, within 2 points of Dublin in those games, and then to see where they are now.
Yeah, it's crazy to think how quickly they've dropped off. They've lost so many great footballers, and then I think their improvement in hurling has had an impact on the football side, because you think 2008, I know it's a long time ago, but they had an unbelievable team, the likes of Matty Ford, Kieran Ling. They made it to an All-Ireland semi-final, and they played well in that game. And then Jason Ryan was in charge, a young manager. They nearly win Leinster twice in a row. And you think that was their golden period, in my opinion, to get some more players in to push themselves up to divisions. And now they're right back down to the bottom.
Yep, absolutely. I think they really need a lot of work needs to be done in Wexford to develop a few more players through there, and to get a bit of balance between hurling and football, because I think it is all hurling down there right now.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. To move on to another interesting debate, lots of injuries over the weekend. Of course, noticeable ones, Michael Murphy, as we spoke about. John Small, of course, had a nasty injury against Kerry. There was a very noticeable one as well when Paddy Burns got injured for Armagh. this was always to be a little bit expected. I mean, like, coming back after so much time away, is there anything, in your opinion, that can be done to lessen these injuries?
Yeah, they're like a lot of the talk is on these kind of injuries, like the non-contact injuries, and there's a lot of talk about the level of training that's being done. Like, and I don't know, the people love to talk about kind of new rules and stuff like in GAA, but maybe want to look into is limiting the amount of hours per week that fellas are spending with their county teams, not just for injuries itself, for kind of work-life balance as well with their kind of sports and their life outside of that as well. So I think, I don't know. Hard to know really, because the John Small one looked like he just pulled up with a hamstring injury in particular. I don't know. That could have happened at any time, but there seems to have been last year as well. There were an awful lot of kind of soft tissue injuries that were kind of in the first few weeks after kind of extensive training. So maybe GA could look into in future of a potentially limiting training and easing lads back in, not having too much too soon.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I do think that the GA will work towards that, and they'll bring in the right people. And our knowledge on it is only going to get better. And I think eventually, if you're talking even 10 years down the line, I think we'll see less and less of these injuries if people apply the right measures and stop players going from 0 to 100 in no time at all.
Yeah, and from a spectator perspective as well, people don't want to be watching kind of league games and championship games where the likes of Michael Murphy and John Small are out injured. So hopefully, anyway, that it's not too bad and that they'll be back in time for championship.
Yep, hopefully, we wouldn't want to miss players like Michael Murphy and John Small in the championship. Particularly if John Small gets a chance to play against Kerry. We all remember him trying to rip the shirt off David Clifford at the end of the league match back last year. That set the tone really well for the championship for the next meeting between these two counties. And I do think right now, if I had to pick, I would say it's between Dublin and Kerry for the All-Ireland.
Yeah, you could probably say the same for the last couple of years that Kerry seem to be still the team that are best placed to be challenging Dublin. I know Mayo are slowly starting to improve more so every year. They drew All-Ireland final last year and it looks good in the league. Maybe it might be still a year too soon for them. They're still developing lads, but yeah, I would probably agree that it is. Yeah, Kerry do look the best place to give Dublin the best game this year.
Yeah, I would agree with that. So that is our coverage of the Allianz Football League results and our preview for next weekend's fixtures. Luke, it's been a pleasure.
Yep, thanks very much, Seamus.
All right, thanks for listening, guys. I hope you enjoyed the podcast, and take care.